This program contains graphic material, including offensive language. Viewer discretion is advised. The ATL, capital of the South.
We were the rulers of Atlanta. We ran the gang scene in Atlanta. Nobody else could touch it.
Home to a cold-blooded crime syndicate.
It was murders, man. There was aggravated assaults, man. A lot of violence, man. Beat downs.
One gang, La Gran Familia, held the pride of Dixie hostage.
We just didn't care. If the police were gonna pull your we'll kill the cop. It's no big deal.
Anything was game, at any cost.
I was just out of control. Just felt invincible, unstoppable.
For years, they flew under the radar.
It really blew my mind to see how mobile these guys were and how widespread.
Exploding into one of the most notorious band of criminals the South has ever seen.
We were LGF. Who's gonna mess with us?
Gangland.
Atlanta, the cradle of Dixie. In the last 20 years, the population of the metro area has more than doubled, topping out at more than 5 million. New residents are drawn by the Southern hospitality and an urban expansion never before seen in this area.
Went like wildfire, and just a lot of people came because of all the job opportunities.
The rapid growth has spawned the development of new suburbs, which cover a sprawling 2,000 square miles. 9 out of every 10 metro area residents now live outside the Atlanta city limits in well-manicured neighborhoods with new shopping centers.
They moved out to those areas, as did the money, as did the education that can be afforded by that money. So a lot of people looked at the suburbs as the growing place to be.
With this population explosion came another inevitable side effect.
You wouldn't imagine it. You drive through and you go, wow, this beautiful place. You wouldn't imagine the type of criminal activity that's going on underneath the surface.
One of those criminal elements was LGF, La Gran Familia, or the Big Family.
It was hard. They were killers, they were drug dealers. You just look at them the wrong way, they're gonna beat your ass.
LGF is a syndicate of 5 Hispanic street gangs. The Latin Kings, the Brownside Locos, Malditos 13, Pachucos 21, and the Riverside Locos. Each group has equal power and shares a common goal.
The more people, the more money, the more moves you can make. LGF, that's what they basically were about, man. Power, money, and respect.
Together, LGF is a violent tribe that terrorizes the streets and other gangs. Jose Quiros, street name Turtle, was part of that tribe. He's an OG, an original gangster.
The reign of power that we had, that little reign of prime that we had, man, our prime was delicious, man.
Turtle was only 9 years old when his family moved from Houston in the early 90s. There were too many Hispanics there, he says, and not enough jobs. Atlanta offered opportunity.
It was boosting, man. That's where the money was at. So, you know, people started migrating out here. My family's one of those.
Turtle was an outsider, the only Latino student in an elementary school filled with Caucasians and African Americans.
When I was by myself, I would get picked on, try to, you know, look at him, you know, he's something else, he's not from here.
That changed when Turtle and other Hispanic kids formed one of the largest gangs in LGF.
All of us got together, man. It was a big
Like a big organization of dudes, man, that just got together.
By the time he turned 17, Turtle was dealing everything from weed to ecstasy to coke.
We just wanted to do drugs. We wanted to spend money, go get nice clothes, and, you know, what kids do with money, you know?
After 6 years in LGF, he got busted, caught with 2 ounces of cocaine during a police raid.
I was in bed, man, and the next thing I hear is a door crash. Boom! And next thing I know, the blanket just flew off of my face, and the gun was right there. A big old chrome 45 right there on my face, man, and I looked at it. I was like, whoa, wait a minute, whoa, is this a dream or what?
For LGF, the gangster lifestyle was a dream. It was also a magnet for kids like 15-year-old Eric Malinin, a.k.a. Spider.
I was just a little kid in the neighborhood riding my bike, youngster, after school, cruising around, probably smoking cigarettes or something, hiding it from mom. Saw a couple guys in Lexuses, rims, nice women, gold chains. Damn, who are they? I want to be one of them.
Spider was expelled from 9th grade for bringing a gun to school. He never went back.
Started hanging out, smoking weed, drinking. Eventually just kicked it with him. Ended up clicking.
It wasn't long before Spider was packing serious ammunition.
You could have a 25 and shoot it 50 times and do minimal damage. You got an AK-47, couple rounds, all you need.
LGF's goal was to dominate Atlanta by any means necessary.
LGF was getting involved in stuff like drive-by shootings, armed robberies, home invasions, and homicides. I mean, and everything in between. Whatever they can do to hurt somebody else and get their name out there that, you know, hey, we're LGF.
They're living for the high life. They want to be respected out on the street. Respected to them is out there carrying a gun, shooting people.
15-year-old Hugo Rocha, a.k.a. Little Bear, was in the thick of the action. His hearing and speech permanently damaged due to his gangbanging.
To tell you the truth, when I started gangbanging, I told my dad I wasn't gonna live to be 18.
His words nearly rang true. In 2003, Little Bear was outside his girlfriend's apartment, smoking a cigarette, when a car drove up. A rival gang member got out and insisted they fight. The altercation quickly escalated.
He shot me. He shot me in my leg. When I first started running, that's what made me fall. I got back up, shot me 7, 8 times in my stomach.
The cops admit that this kind of violence sprung up almost overnight in Atlanta.
Do you have a unit that has a code 18 on Barrett Parkway? We started getting the drive-by shootings, and it was gang-motivated drive-by shootings and then the homicides.
Unlike the neighborhood-centered gangs of Los Angeles, New York, and Chicago, the gangs of Metro Atlanta have no real boundaries. Although they concentrate mostly in Gwinnett, DeKalb, and Cobb counties, their reach spreads as far north as Hall County, some 50 miles from downtown.
One of the challenges we've had, especially dealing with the gangs, is generally we're confined by our jurisdiction. And the gang members they don't observe the boundaries.
Graffiti outlines the turf here, and it can be seen everywhere.
Graffiti is the first sign that there are gangs in the area. Usually what follows are your thefts, your entering autos, armed robberies, and your drive-by shootings or homicides.
The graffiti first started showing up in the mid-90s, before Atlanta authorities even realized they had a gang problem. One tag popped up time and time again, the legendary name of LGF. Those 3 letters quickly became synonymous with murder, mayhem, and drugs. The LGF syndicate financed itself by dealing dope, and Atlanta offered no shortage of supply.
They were, from what I understand, dealing starting to move into sizable quantities of powder cocaine, ice, marijuana, methamphetamine, things like that.
This former LGF member, Maria, asked to have her identity concealed. As she explains, drugs were the fuel that drove LGF's burgeoning empire.
Drug motivates and moves almost every crime that is done, because drugs equal money.
More money means more money for weapons. They were actually able to get their members out of jail when they were incarcerated. Some were hiring attorneys, some were buying houses.
The influx of cash also financed LGF's battles against their greatest threat, other Hispanic gangs looking to infringe on their drug turf, like La Raza, Northside 14, and the Sureños. When it came to protecting themselves, LGF spared no expense.
They had, $300,000 homes with $6,000 bulletproof doors. I mean, it wasn't out of the ordinary. Bulletproof windows, Mercedes, Benzes.
While LGF was protected, Atlanta's residents had nowhere to hide. March 3rd, 1998, in the quiet suburb of Sandy Springs, gunshots exploded. 17-year-old Manuel Martinez was hit while walking across the grounds of the Charleston Square Apartments. His bullet-riddled body was left for dead. Within hours, the body of another victim was found, stuffed in garbage bags and tossed in a ditch along a rural road.
One's Hispanic, one's black. The only common denominator at this point was that they both been shot, but they also were what we would call street people.
3 days later, a third victim was found, another black male. He too had been stuffed in garbage bags and dumped near a creek on the outskirts of Atlanta. A low-level cocaine dealer named Victor Fitz came forward and identified the victims. He told police all three were associates of sorts.
There were some customers that would drive by and these street people would try to direct them to Victor because I think they got a little bit of product too if they were able to steer customers to Victor.
Victor was an associate of La Gran Familia. His niece, who lived with him, dated a member of the gang. Yet Victor claimed these killings were the work of a rival drug dealer, not LGF. And he said he too was on that rival's hit list and feared for his life.
Victor gave us the impression that he was scared of this drug dealer, and that particular drug dealer possibly was a little bit scared of Victor as well.
Police still suspected a connection with LGF, but if Victor knew of one, he wasn't talking.
They know about you talking about them. Later they're gonna try to kill you, they're gonna try to kill your family, you understand?
Then authorities found some disturbing evidence. A Polaroid picture was stuck to the body of one of the victims. It showed a man brandishing a shotgun. His face was familiar.
Well, I took a look at the picture and I realized that it was Victor.
Authorities had no idea how or why a picture of Victor turned up on one of the victims. They quickly placed him in protective custody. If LGF was behind the photo, who knew what might happen next? Atlanta, 1990. The city celebrated as it was selected to host the 1996 Centennial Olympic Games. Atlanta was poised to become an international destination. As construction got underway, Hispanic immigrants began flooding the city in search of work.
Manual labor, especially, was needed for all the things that were being built. And that's when we started seeing large number of Hispanics, mostly Mexican, coming into the city.
They can come work, a week and make $1,000 in a week. Why not? Who wouldn't?
As the Olympics drew nearer, construction projects fell behind schedule, and workers were in high demand. Immigration authorities looked the other way as Latinos came in even larger numbers.
The great American dream for them was here, just to make that money.
Victor Fitz was one of those looking for easy cash. Life in Mexico was difficult, too difficult in his opinion.
You make a bottom hole right there, You make it 1 cent a piece, you know. You gotta work hard. For making $1, you gotta work hard, you know.
Within just 1 decade, Atlanta's Latino population surged from about 9,000 to over 64,000.
Everybody was coming over, land of opportunity.
Some found a better way of life. Others found crime.
Gang activity with Hispanic gangs in the state of Georgia is overwhelming. They have certainly surpassed any other particular criminal street gang in the state of Georgia.
The city's population explosion left police departments scrambling to catch up. They began hiring cops like Jose Diaz, a bilingual officer with Gwinnett County Police. Diaz understood the strong connection Hispanics share with family and how that intensified the gang problem.
So you take that same mindset and values and put into the gang thing, you know, come join our gang because we're going to protect you.
You're a family. Supposedly you're supposed to be there for each other whenever anything goes down.
In 1995, one of the largest gangs inside La Gran Familia, or LGF, formed. It started with 10 outcast kids, including Jose Quiros, a.k.a. Turtle. They were being picked on in school until they banded together and turned the tables.
They started seeing that we were good as a gang. That's when it started forming.
Within months, they were 40 strong.
Instead of us being the hunted, we were being the hunters.
Soon, the gang joined forces with 4 other violent Hispanic gangs to become La Gran Familia. Together, they demanded respect from their Hispanic rivals and made more money. Before long, their name was everywhere.
And then everybody was saying, Gran Familia, pura Gran Familia. Everybody wanted to be LGF.
LGF set out to control all of Atlanta's underworld.
We wanted to have fear inside of people's hearts. It's like a kingdom. It was like a kingdom, man. It was like, you know, a king would rather be feared than loved.
By 1997, the Olympics had come and gone, and the streets of Atlanta were running wild. Of all the gangs, however, LGF stood out to the cops.
In the mid-90s, the gang scene was a Wild West show, and there was no organization. It was gangs on every block trying to make a name for themselves. La Gran Familia brought in a chain of command.
Hispanic street gangs had long been seen as loose social groups. But it was clear to authorities that LGF had taken another direction. It was intricate, coordinated, and extremely structured.
That was one of the first things that opened my eyes, that they were smart enough to create this organization.
According to Turtle, an OG, or original gangster, LGF operated like a well-oiled government.
LGF, it works like a Congress. It works like a Senate, man. And you got senators from different gangs, let's just say the heads, right, from different states. They would sit down and talk about what they were gonna do, or how things were gonna run, what they didn't want, who they didn't want with them, or what gangs they didn't like, or whatever, you know? And it would get passed down like a bill. Everybody would say aye to it.
As Hispanics continued to pour into Metro Atlanta, LGF's numbers grew.
Many Hispanic kids looked at LGF as, that's what I want to do. That's what I want to be. As I did when I was 8 years old. I had an older brother, Land Kings, and I saw him in our area, and that's what I strive for as a little kid.
Young kids like Little Bear joined in droves, embracing lives of crime.
We were out in the streets, school, everywhere, you know, we'd be tagging, smoking, drinking, skipping school. I mean, we'd be breaking into houses, stealing cars.
The bigger the crime, the bigger the name.
You have to have a lot of street credit. The more damage you do, the bigger, the better you are. Everybody has to go out and do missions, from robbings, from carjackings, from killings, murders.
Police struggled to contain the escalating violence.
It was tough. It was tough because it was a total new culture. This law enforcement never had to deal with them before.
much of that violence occurred in Atlanta's transient suburban apartment complexes. Because so many gang members were illegals, they were reluctant to settle in one area for too long. They knew getting caught by the heat could mean deportation.
So you don't know when immigration coming, you gotta be ready all the time. With a run.
The area's numerous cookie-cutter apartment complexes, built to accommodate the rising population, were the perfect cover for the gang's borderless crimes.
To start committing a crime in my county and hopping over the border, they've changed the demographics right there. Okay, they've got a whole different agency involved, and they understand that. I mean, they're moving guns, they're moving dope, they're even moving people.
Many of the complexes were designed with one way in and out, making them the perfect places for LGF to ambush their enemies.
That way we can have our own little flag trap. To, you know, when they come in, you know, we can use that to our advantage, man. We used it to our advantage beautifully.
LGF would wait for their rivals down by the dumpsters at a dead end.
Before they come all the way down there, we already had our set up. We already had it set up nice. And when they try to look for us, it was more like, bam, surprise, here we is. You know, they would get the hell of gunfire. We were the ones running that there, nobody else.
LGF's vice-like grip on Atlanta's suburban apartments made it hard for law enforcement to police the gang.
One way in, one way out. What does that create? That creates a perfect environment for a gang. People just think that gang members are stupid, but you know, when you got one road in and one road out, you can realize when law enforcement is coming into that area.
These scenes of the city's storybook growth soon became terror centers for their residents. In Metro Atlanta, apartment complexes are where gang wars start, and it doesn't take much of a spark.
You want to go around outside the building, please?
This complex is the known turf of one of LGF's rivals, a loose federation of several Hispanic gangs called Northside 14. DeKalb County Detective Charlie Lida is on a mission, looking for the assailants behind a string of assaults.
Keep them hands so I can see them.
As you can tell, these guys are Northside gangbangers. Got all the gang stuff written on them. Probably been assaulting people with. If LGF came into this neighborhood, we probably would have assaults, shootings, things like that.
LGF, La Gran Familia, is a syndicate of 5 Hispanic street gangs and one of Atlanta's deadliest. For the past decade, LGF has taken over areas like this to exploit their drug business.
You know, they'll pay a mom that has a baby in a carriage just to hang out at the front and make it look like she's babysitting some kids, but she's actually a lookout for a larger group.
Other residents often find themselves at the gang's mercy. Even authorities are of little help.
Citizens inside these particular housing areas are scared to death to contact law enforcement. When the police come in and knock on your door, what have you just done? You've identified yourself as a complainant. When law enforcement pulls out, guess what? You're there by yourself, and you still become a victim of crime. So that's why people don't call law enforcement. They're afraid.
When it comes to tracking LGF, law enforcement is fighting an uphill battle. Not only are witnesses reluctant to talk, they have to be street smart to even identify an LGF member. Even though La Gran Familia has been around since 1996, the group has no specific sign or color. Their only identifying mark is a flag made up of the syndicate's colors.
Brown side is brown, Latin Kings is gold and black, and Malditos is black, Pachucos is gray, and Riverside is brown. Everyone's got their color. If you're banging, you know what the other person dresses like.
There is a tattoo associated with LGF, worn mainly by high-ranking members, as a way to distinguish themselves from the lower ranks of the gang.
The tattoo of LGF would be nothing more than LGF, the letters LGF. Some of these gangs would put it where it would be permanently visible, as some will have it on the back of their hand, on their fingers, and some even on their neckline.
There is one way all LGF members stay visible, through their taggings. Tags are used to communicate messages and might incorporate the artist's name or other letters. As former LGF member Spider explains, tags establish the gang's territory, setting unmistakable boundaries.
You just represent, you want your hood to be the one that's seen. You want people to know that that's your territory, that's where you're operating. That's where you're at. Stay away.
The gangs that comprise LGF mark their turf, staying true to the family.
Of course we represented, and we always used to tag it, no matter where we went to. You know, we would put LGF.
The tags define the turf and warn of upcoming wars, each mark signifying a specific action.
Cross them out with an X, just a normal. Cross them out with an X in a circle, it's a little more hate. Put 187 on it, you're looking for somebody from that hood. You want to take someone out. You know how many rival gang members are operating in your territory by how quickly you're crossing, your tagging gets crossed out. And then you know how dangerous it is for you there.
The greatest threat to LGF comes from other gangs who want a piece of the lucrative drug trade. Since the late 1990s, Atlanta has evolved into a major southeast hub for cocaine, marijuana, and methamphetamines.
There used to be a point where drugs were sold. Now it's got to be a major distribution point where the drugs are dropped here and spread out to other places.
The city's network of 13 freeways radiates out from downtown Atlanta in every direction. 3 of those are major interstates that funnel drugs to and from Florida, Texas, California, even Canada. LGF uses this system of connected roadways to confuse and outsmart authorities.
Take off the door panels in your vehicle, put them in 5-gallon paint buckets, fill it back up with paint. You can pack them into tires. There's a million tricks to the trade. You just gotta think outside the box. Think like the police think and then outsmart them.
LGF is known for purchasing kilogram quantities of powdered cocaine from Mexican drug traffickers. They convert most of it to crack and sell it for big bucks.
That money that came in from it, man, it was so good, man. You know, you couldn't stop. It was an addiction.
LGF members will do anything to get drugs. They're fond of a dangerous maneuver pulled on dope dealers, referred to in the South as a kick door.
Knock, knock, bang, bang. Go in there, you kick in the door, you look for the dope, the money, and get the hell out of there. That's what a kick door was.
By 2000, drugs were feeding LGF's appetite for money. The more they made, the greedier they got, and the more vicious they became.
It started getting serious. It started getting really out of hand.
March 1998, Metro Atlanta. 3 bodies were found in the suburbs. 1 at an apartment complex. 2 others wrapped in garbage bags and dumped in area ditches.
These people were laying on the ground, tied, shot in the head.
Authorities suspected LGF was connected to the murders. One of LGF's associates, a cocaine dealer named Victor Fitz, told them it was the work of a rival dealer who was also after him. Then detectives found a Polaroid picture stuck to one of the bodies. The photo was of Victor holding a gun. The cops took action, placing him in protective custody, before a twist in the evidence changed everything.
We learned Fitz had rented a second apartment over in the complex where he was dealing drugs that he had never told us about.
That apartment turned out to be the crime scene.
There was a large amount of blood still present at the scene.
Police found plastic garbage bags, rope, a .38 revolver, and the same shotgun Victor had been holding in the snapshot. Both guns were identified as the murder weapons. All three men had been victims of a well-orchestrated hit by Victor.
I think probably what happened was when we put Victor into protective custody, he didn't have time to go back and clean up the apartment.
The Fulton County investigation revealed that Victor had solicited LGF members to carry out the murders.
Victor was a paranoid individual and that he was using a lot of coke himself. Whether he mistakenly thought that these individuals might have been stealing from him or whether they were skimming off the top, that's about the only thing we could come up with.
One of the victims, Manuel Martinez, who was not a member of the gang, had actually witnessed the first two murders.
He starts running his mouth. I don't know if he told Victor he wanted some money for his silence. Victor tells a couple of the Latin kings, hey, get rid of this guy, but we want to make it look like the rival drug dealer killed him.
The Polaroid picture was the tipping point for police.
We think as they were wrapping these bodies up in haste and all, we think it just got picked up and thrown in there at the same time, and we think it was probably purely accidental. But it was a good lead for us.
1 year later, Victor Fitz was convicted of murder and felony murder. He's now serving 3 life sentences in Macon State Prison. To this day, he denies any involvement.
You see, I stay right here because they think I the one get orders for killing. That's why I stay right here for. Because they think I get orders to killing. I'm innocent. I stay right here for something somebody else did.
Victor's denials don't surprise me. I think perhaps in his own mind he feels that because he didn't pull the trigger that he's not culpable.
For law enforcement, the garbage bag murders were an early indication that LGF was growing stronger and much more violent.
It does send an incredible message that you don't want to mess with that organization because this is what could happen to you.
By May 1999, the gang was becoming even more ruthless. LGF members shot and wounded a DeKalb County police officer. The shooting happened during a robbery at an employment agency.
They will kill an officer, they will kill a school teacher, anybody. They won't hesitate.
Drive-bys became the preferred tactic of LGF. No one was safe.
I've seen innocent bystanders shot in the face or peppered with buckshot. I've seen kids shot and killed as a result of these drive-by shootings, and it's really unreal.
In 2000, Atlanta authorities recognized they needed help to take down La Gran Familia. They called on the FBI.
We started getting tired of all the violence, the jumpings, the beatdowns, the shootings, the robberies, the drug dealing.
Almost immediately, a Safe Streets task force was formed, a program that had proven successful in other cities.
The task force consisted of FBI agents, agents from Immigration Customs Enforcement, and agents from the state and local agencies.
Authorities began a painstaking investigation, going back up to 10 years to examine old cases. Out on the streets, LGF members like Spider kept banging.
I was just out of control. Just felt invincible, unstoppable. Did whatever I want, whenever I wanted. It was just limitless.
19-year-old Turtle had just finished a prison stint, serving 3 months for possession of cocaine. For once, he was trying to stay out of trouble.
Man, I was clean. I wasn't doing that no more. I wasn't even drinking.
All the while, Atlanta authorities prepared for a takedown. For 2 years, they linked the crimes of individual LGF members to the gang as a whole.
Basically, looking at this gang as organized crime, you have to show, well, the crimes that we're committing, how were they beneficial to the gang?
Establishing La Gran Familia as an organized crime faction was key. Under the RICO, or Racketeer Influenced and Corrupt Organizations Act, organized crime can be prosecuted as a felony. The RICO Act gave investigators the power to dismantle LGF for a long time.
When you take a gang member down federally, there's no such thing as parole. If you get 25-year sentence, don't make any plans for 25 years.
In December 2002, the task force struck, rounding up 38 members of La Gran Familia in the same night. 20-year-old Turtle was one of them. He was working his legitimate job in the meat department of a grocery store when a female agent approached him.
When I told her my last name, that's when she was like, all right, well, do me a favor. Reach for her side, pull out a gun, and she just pointed at me. She's like, put the weapon down, because I had a knife in my hand. I threw the weapon on the floor, but I ain't getting on the floor. Nothing but meat down there, blood and stuff.
To Turtle's surprise, an entire FBI task force took him down.
Next thing I know, man, I see SWAT teams, man. I mean, FBI SWAT teams come out of everywhere. It looked like an action movie, man. No lie. I looked to the side where I was contemplating on running, but I didn't run. You know, thank God. I would have got shot up or something. They were everywhere, man. And that's what tripped me out, man, because I was like, you know, what did I do? You know, well, I didn't kill nobody, you know? I know it.
Turtle was one of 51 members of La Gran Familia indicted on federal racketeering charges.
They let me know what my rights were, RICO Act, boom. I met up with the homeboys at the fish tank.
The gang was in shock.
The indictment was completely surprised. It was completely spontaneous. No one knew anything. We were completely relaxed. We thought we owned the world.
Within days, members of LGF started ratting one another out.
A lot of homeboys like, they don't know nothing, man. They don't got nothing against you. Bull, man. They had people talking already. They had people who were already signed up to go testify against people. And it was bad, man.
All of a sudden, other information came out about crimes that LGF committed. They were toppling amongst one another.
The racketeering case was the largest in Atlanta's history. By 2007, more than 24 gang members were sentenced.
From that time, I didn't get out for nothing. No bond, nothing.
13 others eluded the FBI, likely fleeing south of the border. 8 months after the indictment, the leaders of LGF were in prison, yet the violence continued on the streets. In 2003, 15-year-old Little Bear was outside his girlfriend's apartment when a rival gang member shot him 9 times. Little Bear stumbled back to the apartment where his friends were.
Went back onto the wall and hit the floor, and they started putting pressure on me and everything. They told them, let me go, I'm gonna die, leave me alone, I'm gonna die.
Little Bear's homies tried desperately to stop the bleeding.
I was covered in blood from head to toe. That was when I passed out.
Little Bear was rushed to the hospital. By the time he got there, he had slipped into a coma and was breathing with the help of a ventilator. For the first time, he was the victim. In 2003, the feds prosecuted dozens of LGF members, putting away one of Metro Atlanta's greatest threats and breaking up the syndicate.
The indictment that the feds brought, the RICO Act, it killed LGF, man. It destroyed it. It broke it up. It dismantled it. You don't got the same respect in LGF that you had before.
Or so they thought. Although fractured and terribly disorganized, there are indications that LGF is back.
This is some graffiti that was put up within the last 2 weeks. This here is LK for Latin Kings. Got the crown, the 5 points, and the 5 dots. Latin Kings, one of their symbols is the number 5, and that's coming from the People Nation out of Chicago. And over to the side, they have the gang member who did this. Probably have Jonah, did the Latin Kings, and we have Speedy. And out to the side of Speedy, have BSL, which is Brownside Locos. Brownside Locos and the Latin Kings are two gangs that are members of La Gran Familia.
Today, LGF members appear more computer savvy than street smart.
They are using the internet. They're using the internet to advertise and recruit. They're using them in public schools. They're using them in public libraries to maintain and continue to operate.
They're cyberbanging, designing their websites to flash gang flags and hand signs. Their activity isn't lost on the cops.
You know, they're giving the feds and the cops more, like a way to get in more evidence for them to f them over in the end.
Turtle, an original gangster, is 25 years old now. He was released from prison in 2007 after serving 5 years.
I started opening up my eyes more. Education was my way, man. I started going to school, got my GED, started taking college courses.
Now out of the gang, his tattoos tell of a new chapter in his life.
Like these tattoos I got, these are called viajes. These are called like a storyline. You know what I'm saying? And a bunch of them, both my arms are all tatted up because that's a viaje. One side is what happened, you know, my resurrection to a new life.
He helps manage a restaurant now while attending college. He tries not to dwell on his mistakes.
No matter what you've been through, you can't regret your past. Because if you regret your past, then you'll regret your future, because if it wasn't for your past, then you wouldn't be the person that you are today. But what I will say about the gangs, the gang life ain't for nobody, man.
24-year-old Spider has also moved on, yet his past haunts him.
I try to forget most of it, and have. They're not good memories.
Spider has settled down with a wife and daughter.
You can't wild out forever. You eventually have to wake up. And well, it depends on what you want to wake up to. 6 a.m. breakfast, I mean, biscuits and grits, or you know, a woman in your bed and children in your home.
He tries to encourage kids to choose the right path.
Try to give some advice to the youngsters. Let them know I've been there and done that. It's not the way. It's a rough road. You know, there's two paths. They're side by side. You're gonna age the same and end up the same in the grave. You can take the rocky road, you know, walking, or you can ride a bike down smooth concrete. It's either way you want to go.
Little Bear, who was shot 9 times at the age of 15, was in a coma for 3 months. He woke up to a harsh new life.
I couldn't talk, eat, move, I couldn't do anything. And when I woke up, I really didn't know who I was.
His near-death experience was enough to scare him straight.
I mean, I'm lucky to be alive. To tell you the truth, I'm actually glad the guy shot me. You know, because if he wouldn't have shot me, I really wouldn't know where I'd be now. I'd probably be dead, or I'd probably in prison.
Little Bear now mentors other kids. He shows them his wounds, graphic reminders of the violence that changed his life.
This is right here. My stomach right here and my intestines, they're all plastic. This is like plastic right here. I can't really feel this area right here. This area right here, I can't really feel. And that's why I use the straps to try to keep my stomach in.
Little Bear's skin is permanently stretched out, a result of swelling he experienced during his hospital stay. He also needs dialysis to stay alive. LGF, the gang Little Bear once considered to be his family, is no longer in his life.
And I look at myself now, you know, I ask myself, you know, you said you was gonna be there for me, you was gonna be my brother, things like that. Where you are now when I really need you, you know. I was shot, I was in the hospital, and I didn't see you. I've been locked out, I still didn't see you. I didn't hear from you.
These three consider themselves lucky to have a new lease on life. But they know there are plenty of other kids eager to take their place. And though LGF is crippled, they believe that one day it will again take Atlanta authorities by surprise. program contains graphic material, including offensive language. Viewer discretion is advised. The ATL, capital of the South.
We were the rulers of Atlanta. We ran the gang scene in Atlanta. Nobody else could touch it.
Home to a cold-blooded crime syndicate.
It was murders, man. There was aggravated assaults, man. A lot of violence, man. Beat downs.
One gang, La Gran Familia, held
The more money, the more moves you can make. LGF, that's what they basically were about, man. Power, money, and respect.
Together, LGF is a violent tribe that terrorizes the streets and other gangs. Jose Quiros, street name Turtle, was part of that tribe. He's an OG, an original gangster.
The reign of power that we had, that little reign of prime that we had, man, our prime was delicious, man.
Turtle was only 9 years old when his family moved from Houston in the early 90s. There were too many Hispanics there, he says, and not enough jobs. Atlanta offered opportunity.
It was boosting, man.
Pride of Dixie hostage.
We just didn't care. If the police were gonna pull your we'll kill the cop. It's no big deal.
Anything was game at any cost.
I was just out of control. Just felt invincible, unstoppable.
For years, they flew under the radar.
It really blew my mind to see how mobile these guys were and how widespread.
Exploding into one of the most notorious band of criminals the South has ever seen.
We were LGF. Who's gonna mess with us?
Gangland.
Atlanta, the cradle of Dixie. In the last 20 years, with this population explosion, came another inevitable side effect.
You wouldn't imagine it. You drive through and you go, wow, this is a beautiful place. You wouldn't imagine the type of criminal activity that's going on underneath the surface.
One of those criminal elements was LGF, La Gran Familia, or the Big Family.
It was hard. They were killers, they were drug dealers. You just look at them the wrong way, they're gonna beat your ass.
LGF is a syndicate of 5 Hispanic street gangs. The Latin Kings, the Brownside Locos, Malditos 13, Pachucos 21, and the Riverside Locos. Each group has equal power and shares a common goal.
The more people, the more.
The population of the metro area has more than doubled, topping out at more than 5 million. New residents are drawn by the southern hospitality and an urban expansion never before seen in this area.
Went like wildfire, and just a lot of people came because of all the job opportunities.
The rapid growth has spawned the development of new suburbs, which cover a sprawling 2,000 square miles. 9 out of every 10 metro area residents now live outside the Atlanta city limits in well-manicured neighborhoods with new shopping centers.
They moved out to those areas, as did the money, as did the education that can be afforded by that money. So a lot of people looked at the suburbs as the growing place to be.